There was a war looming. My father was a soldier.
Welcome to Gather In, where you'll hear stories of conversion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you have an interesting story to tell, please go to our Instagram page or send us an email to gatherin@proton.me. Before we start this week's episode, could I ask a small favour? If you could just like and subscribe and follow, but most importantly, leave a small comment when you've finished watching or listening. It'll make it a little bit easier for other people to find the Gathering podcast on whatever platform you're on. Thanks. Good afternoon or good evening or good morning or whatever it happens to be for you when you're watching this. I'm here today doing a little bit of an ad hoc interview with my wonderful old friend Belle Boxshall. I shouldn't say old friend. Well,
Old's all right.
You've been a friend for a long
time. Yes.
So that's what I mean when I say an old friend. But Belle's not particularly young.
No, that's true.
How old are you now, Belle?
88.
88. Belle's 88.
Same age as the Pope.
Same age as the Pope. So I reckon you're doing better than the Pope.
I think I am.
Yeah, and so I've just been visiting Belle this afternoon after I went down and had a little surf with Miriam, my daughter, down at Anglesea this morning. And I often, that's not a good word, is it? I occasionally, when I have time, drop in to visit Belle on the way home. And we're just sitting here having a chat. And I thought, gee, we should record this because, well, none of us know how much longer we're going to be on Earth, right?
That's the truth, yes.
We never know when we're leaving. And I like to get someone's story before they're leaving. So this is, Belle, this is no, I mean, you could leave, once we record this, you can leave next week if you like, but we want you around for a little while longer, right? But I was wondering, Belle, and I'm going to just take the camera off me now and focus it on you. So I normally do these interviews on Zoom, but we're doing it right in person now. So Belle, what year were you born and where were you born?
36. I was born in 1936, and I was born in a place called Durham, which is the top northeastern part of the UK.
Okay, is it up getting close to Scotland?
Very close, yes.
And so what year?
1936.
1936, okay. So can you describe sort of what life was like back in Durham in 36 or sometime after that, because obviously you don't remember what it was like right in 1936, but going to school, family life. How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had one brother who died during the war.
Yeah.
And I had 3 sisters, but I'm the oldest in the family.
Okay, and your younger sisters, are they still alive?
One of them has gone to live with God.
Yeah.
And the other 2, I think, are still around.
Right, but they live in the UK.
They live in the UK, yes.
A little bit hard for you to keep in touch with them, perhaps.
Yeah, I've got a computer which I'm trying to work out how to keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
It was a lot different then to what it is now. We didn't have electricity. There was a war looming. My father was a soldier. Move your family, which was myself. I was 3, just coming up 3, and my sister was a baby. And so he moved us down into Yorkshire where there was family. He had brothers living in Yorkshire. And so that's where he moved us down to there. As I say, we didn't have electricity. We had gas, lights and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unusual now. I mean, to just flick a switch is an amazing thing to us. It was then. So that was the way it was. Our water came from a well, which came bucketed up on a rope.
Oh, really? You didn't have running water in your house?
Not at the time, not the house that we were moved into. No, we didn't have running water.
Right.
So that was our thing. My mother was a handicapped person. She'd had a bad accident, and because of that, her right leg stopped growing as much as her left leg. But she never let it bother her. She was an amazing person. It didn't hold her back for anything. Um, my father, as I say, was a soldier, so he had to buzz off to the army. So we were left there. She was left there with us kids. After a little while, her brothers-in-law got her a house, a proper house, an upstairs and a downstairs, still on gas, no electricity. But we had running water,
Wow.
which was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn a tap on and there you were, you had a drink. And so that was life at the time. By this time I was about 4 years old, and my uncle Bob, who lived across the road, dug a garden for me, and I grew vegetables. As little as I was, I grew vegetables. He showed me how to because he was a gardener, and he'd been in the First World War, and so that was what we did. And we had they went and built an air raid shelter outside our house, which was as useful as an ashtray on a motorbike.
But that would be pretty handy, though, wouldn't it? If there was an air raid happening, you could go to the shelter very quickly, couldn't you?
Well,
if
we
it was
could.
right outside your house.
We could, yes,
Yeah?
but it was something for them to aim for.
Oh, right. Okay.
They could see the top of them.
I bet they wouldn't have known where the air shelters were. But anyway.
But anyway,
Okay.
we were there, and we could look out the windows of the air raid shelter and see the searchlights and stuff like that. So it was interesting as kids. We could see all that sort of thing going off. It was interesting, and life went on. I went to school there. My mother was very good. The farmer nearby, there were two farmers. One of them used to bring her potatoes and stuff, and the other one used to drop a couple of chickens in.
Right.
So we nearly always had food,
Okay.
even though it was rationed. Everything was rationed.
Yeah.
We had ration books for everybody. Had a ration book, and so yeah, that was life.
Bill, something I want to ask you about. So you were born in 1936. World War II started in 1939, of course. So this is life. You know, you talked about being on rations and stuff like that through the war. Things were pretty hard. Do you remember as a young child going to church? Did you go to church as a family?
I did go to church.
Yeah.
My my grandfather was a Methodist preacher.
Okay.
He lived in one area, but we lived in another area. So we all went together up to the chapel. It was the Methodist chapel. There's my auntie and my two aunties, two uncles, and my mother and myself. And we used to toddle off to church. It was up a very steep hill. And I don't know how my mother used to manage it, but she did, being as handicapped as she was.
Yeah.
But she never bothered. She didn't worry about being handicapped. She didn't think she was.
Yeah. So you went to church regularly?
Regularly, yes, every Sunday.
And
we had our own pew.
I'm guessing it was the Church of England?
Sorry?
Or was it the Church of England or was it another?
It was Methodist.
Methodist church.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Your grandfather was the Methodist preacher.
Yes.
Right. He would have probably been disappointed if you had gone to another church other
He would have been very disappointed.
other than the Methodist church, right?
Yeah, I went to a Church of England school.
Okay.
Because that was the school that was there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And because of mum being handicapped, and then I was sent to school when I was only 4.
Okay. You're an early starter.
I was an early starter.
Yeah.
Into school I went, and was funny. They used to give us a little bottle of milk that used to come. Every one of us got a bottle of milk.
Yeah. Every day.
Every single day.
Was the same at school. I grew up going to school here in Australia, of course. Every day you get I think it was like a third of a pint or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Only a small bottle.
Yeah.
But we had that every day.
Yeah.
And we had to queue up for a spoonful of cod liver oil and orange juice.
Okay, so you're getting your vitamin C from the orange juice, vitamin D from your cod liver
Yeah,
oil,
yes, yeah.
and a drink
That was
of
at
milk.
school.
Yeah, so just in case you weren't getting really well fed at home, you were getting some of the essential nutrients there. Sort of a government program, I guess.
And my
to help
sister,
everyone.
who was 2 years younger than me,
Yeah.
she hated the orange juice and the cod liver oil. So we looked very much alike. So I used to slip into her place and she'd move out and I'd get her cod liver oil and orange juice.
Yeah.
So I had a double dose.
I think I might have tasted cod liver oil once. It's not a gourmet sort of food, is it?
No, it isn't.
Fortunately, in Australia, we get plenty of sunshine,
Yes,
and
yes.
we don't really need to have
No,
something
but-
like cod liver oil.
And I used to get the double dose, so that's all right.
No wonder you've lived a long, healthy life to 88. It's all that cod
I've
liver oil.
benefited from it.
Yeah. So just let me back up a little bit, because what I'm interested to know, Belle, you went to church as a young girl. In your family life, apart from going to church on Sundays, was there any sort of regular religious or spiritual activity happening in the home? Would you say prayers together as a family?
Yes. Yes, my mother always had us say prayers.
Yeah.
The food was always blessed.
Yeah.
And as a family, we said our morning and evening prayers because there was a war on.
You had a lot to pray for.
Sorry?
You had a lot to pray for. You know, you wanted to be safe.
Yes, yes.
You were probably praying that England would be safe and that
That's right.
the Nazis wouldn't come and take over England.
Yes, that's right. We didn't, and it was really quite strange. There was no street signs. We didn't have street signs.
Really?
Yeah, because they were taken down.
Why were they taken down?
So nobody could find their way, only us. We knew them. But if anybody had come down on parachutes and stuff like that, well, they couldn't find their way around.
That sort of strikes me as being a little bit funny. I mean, obviously they didn't have Google Maps back then, but...
But it at the time, and we just accepted the fact that we all knew where we were going. So if anybody stopped at us, if there was a stranger, well, not that you got many strangers in the village, if a stranger stopped and asked you where he was or whatever, we would run like hell. Excuse me. Yes, it was. Another say there was no electricity.
Yeah. So you had a lot to pray for in those days. So how old do you think you were when you started to really develop your faith and it became not just something that Mum did and you just joined in because Mum was suggesting, oh, you got to say your prayers before you go to bed, and we'll have prayer before the food, and we'll have our family prayer. But when did you sort of feel that you had some sort of connection with God, perhaps?
I think even as a child, I think it was because there was a war going on, and that was probably a lot to do with it. It was important because the king would ask us to pray on the radio, which was a wire, one of those wire, touch the wire things, and he would ask us to pray, and Winston Churchill would ask us to pray. So that's what we did, because they asked us to pray. So, of course, when Mum said it's time for prayer, we went and gathered because it was what we were being asked to do by our leaders.
Yeah.
And so, and to me, because my grandfather was a Methodist preacher and he stayed with us part of the year, I guess it was just something that was... It's just something that was part of my life. And it's always been a part of my life to have faith in my Maker. It's
Yeah.
because he's important. He's an important part of my life, and it doesn't matter whether they say what name they give him. You know, even some of the people they called him something different. To me, he's still God.
Mm.
And so, and he's the Lord of the world, the God of the world. And I watch TV, and I like to watch documentaries, and there was one on the other night. They found another planet, another solar system that is like ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said, they're trying to work out. And I thought, well, God's made lots of different solar systems. I think it's that's his job.
Mm. Mm.
To make all these places, and so there's somewhere for us to go if we have to leave this place. And I couldn't be bothered leaving. It's too much of an effort now, but it's nice to know there are other people on the other, around.
Yeah.
I think so. I do believe that there are other places that God has made places and people to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's a gospel according to Isabel.
Yeah. Look, I think, I think you're pretty on the ball there, because when we look up into the sky at night, we see millions of stars, and in fact we don't see all that there is there. We can see the galaxy that we're in, which is the Milky Way, and who knows how many stars and planets are in the Milky Way. Probably millions. I don't know, but there's no end to God's creations.
No, definitely no.
No end to God's
I
creations.
often think, because in the temple, you've been to the temple as well, and I guess there's one part, I think I can say this. There's one part there where you see God walk in marble. It's in marble house. You see God walk and look out. And I think, he's looking out because he's got so much stuff out there that he is in control of.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, I believe he's in control of all of this.
Yeah,
Go out that's my window to the world.
yeah,
I can sit out there, as you can see. There's trees, there's birds flying around. And it's quiet and it's peaceful. And I talk to God a lot out there. That's his we meet there a lot.
okay.
And he can tell me off when I need to be told off there.
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't do that very often.
Sorry?
I'm sure he doesn't do that very often.
He puts me straight. Sometimes I've got to be put straight.
Yeah.
When I say, is that the way it should be, or is that just me being me,
Yeah,
And he'll put me straight.
yeah,
Or if I've got to remember something. Now, sometimes when we had those other people coming to visit me, trying to change me from who I am to somebody else,
yeah,
and they'd come up with something, and I'd say, and I'm not a scriptorian, and I'd ask, in my mind, I'm asking Heavenly Father, what's the, and he would immediately give me the answer,
yeah.
and I could bring it to them.
Oh,
And I
okay.
said, that's the answer.
So these are people from another church who are
Yes,
visiting at times.
that were trying to come and
Yeah.
change me.
Yeah, okay.
But I believe in God.
Yeah,
And I believe what he says. And the church is true. I know that.
okay.
I don't have to be asked. I don't have to be told. It's true.
I'm with you on that one. Let's back up a little bit, Belle, because growing up in the UK, you went through the World War II. By the time the war finished, you were probably still in primary school. Went to high school.
Yes, I went to Wycliffe Mount Grammar School. I was one of the top 20% of people in the UK that went to a grammar school.
Oh, really?
How about that?
Was that because you were so clever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they said.
Yeah.
That's what they said.
Okay.
Because I was a year younger than the others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably it. Not that I was clever, it's just that I was a year younger, so probably, whatever. But I was blessed. I had good parents, good family,
Yeah.
and I was always blessed. Heavenly Father blessed me all my life. I've been blessed
Wonderful.
in,
Yeah.
in good places with good people.
Let me ask you this, because we're not in Yorkshire now. We're not in the UK. We're sitting here in Torquay, Australia, not Torquay, UK. So at some stage in your life, you met John, who you married,
Yes.
and for some reason you came to live in Australia.
Uh,
So can you
yes.
sort of run us through that? What happened to, because it's a big thing to move
It
countries
is, yes.
across to the other side of the world. It's not
Yes.
like you just
It
moved
is.
a little way.
We had Chris, our oldest boy.
Yeah, he was born in the UK.
He was born in the UK. Adrian was born in the UK.
Yeah,
But Adrian was a very sickly child.
yeah,
And we were told that if we didn't get him to a warmer climate, that we wouldn't raise him. We wouldn't be able to raise him. He was
he just wouldn't survive in
Yeah.
England. Yeah,
so, and he was 3 years old when we came to Australia. And we talked about it. We prayed about it. I've always prayed about anything I have to do that I think has to be done. And we prayed about it a lot. And John and I talked about it. And I said, I think we should go to Australia. It'll be warmer,
mm-hmm.
and we might be able to keep Adrian a bit longer.
Yeah,
And so we went to Australia House and had the interviews and stuff like that. And if we were prepared to go to Sydney, we could have to wait probably 2 to 3 years
yeah,
if we had wanted to go to Sydney.
yeah.
But it was only the name I knew was Sydney. Everybody knew Sydney. And then I forget now. Somebody was talking to me, and they said, if you're prepared to go to Adelaide, you can be there within 6 months. So John and I sort of looked at each other and, why is that? Well, they're having a big push at the moment. They want people to go to Adelaide.
Right, and look, I know Adelaide, South Australia probably generally, they have a slightly different accent over there to us Victorians, don't they? And I think it's the English, pretty strong English influence in Adelaide. I
Yes.
mean, we had a lot of English people migrate to Melbourne, Geelong area as well, but
Yeah.
probably more going to Adelaide at that
A
particular time.
lot of people went to Adelaide.
Yeah, so what era are we talking about here, Bill?
It was 1965.
1965.
We finished up in Adelaide, and we were in a hostel in Adelaide for a while.
So this is an immigration hostel where
Yes.
when you first arrived,
£10 pom. The £10 pom.
So you were on that program, were you?
We were on that
It
program.
cost £10 for you to come out here.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
That's right.
that's a pretty cheap fare.
Sorry?
That's a pretty cheap fare.
That's a very cheap fare.
Yeah.
It was funny. We got down to the airport, and there's this big BOC aircraft parked in a thing. And I thought, oh, that sounds very nice aeroplane.
Mm.
And anyway, they put us on this bus, and we all got on this bus, and it drove around this beautiful BOAC aeroplane around on the other side where there was a Bristol Britannia, and that was our aeroplane.
Oh, so I thought the £10 POM program was where you came out on boats, but you actually.
Oh no, we
you
could have
flew
come.
out.
We could have come on a boat.
Yeah.
And I said, oh no, I don't think I could have coped with the 2 boys on a boat, especially Adrian as he was. So they put us on and it was a Bristol Britannia,
Yeah.
and we came on that, and it was a very interesting flight. We came the long way around because there's a war on somewhere, I don't know if it's in Pakistan or not.
You,
So
you're
it was a
talking
long way round.
1965.
1965.
Okay.
And and so we finished up in Adelaide. And it's nice, is Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
But John couldn't get much work. He was Mr. Whippy. He got a job as Mr. Whippy.
Right.
And I was told, because I had been an executive in England,
Mm.
and I was told, oh, you'll get the same sort of job. No, you won't. You get a job as a tea lady. But anyway, we came to Australia.
Mm.
And I was talking to someone else, and they said, if your husband's prepared to do anything, there's a place down in South Australia, southeast of South Australia, called Mount Burr. And he can get a job there, and they give you a house. So that's how we went down there. John said, they said to him, what can you do, anything to do with wood, the woodworking? There's a picture of this bandsaw or something behind the quilt. They said, I can run one of those. He said, he couldn't do anything of the kind. But he said, I could run one of those. And that's how we got down to Mount Burr. And from there eventually we came to Geelong because of knowing people that were coming and that sort of thing. So that's how we came to Geelong.
Okay, but now there's something we've just skipped over there, Belle. I'm just going to put the camera back on me for a little while. I know that it was while you were living down in Mount Burr that somehow you and John became members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We did.
So I'm just going to stop the camera now. I'm going to turn it around to focus on you a bit more. So, what I was just wanting to catch up with, Belle, was how you became members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, I'm just going to, for a second, oh, there we go. You grew up going to the Methodist Church in England.
Yeah.
You met John. Now, was John a religious man when you met him?
He'd been an altar boy in the Catholic Church.
Oh, okay. So John grew up as a Catholic.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So he had a Methodist marry a Catholic. I don't know if that's a match made in heaven or not.
No.
Maybe not. Maybe not. And so you've moved countries. You've come all the way from England to settle in Adelaide. You go down to Mount Burr to live down in Mount Burr. And somehow when you were living in Mount Burr, somehow you became... someone introduced you to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Somehow. Can you tell us how?
We'd been there about 3 days.
Oh, 3 days.
In Mount Burr.
Yeah.
And there's a knock on my front door.
Really?
And I thought, who on earth is knocking after we've been here 3 days? Don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And I opened the door, and there's 2 missionaries standing there. Elder Thane and Elder Olsen. And they introduced themselves, and I thought, how strange they both got the same first name. So, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, I said, they told me who they were then, and that sort of stuff. They said, can we come and visit you when your husband's home? And I said, well, yes. I said, but, he's a Catholic, you'd never change him. They said, oh, well, can we come? I said, yeah. So that evening, they came to our home. The church that they had then, the way the church met then, the church met in Mount Gambier. But we're in Mount Burr. But Mount Gambier is quite a drive.
How far, roughly?
Not that far these days. It's just,
What, half-hour drive maybe? Or?
So anyway, they came, and John was there, and he said, we're going to give him the lessons. And he said, yeah, I'll listen. And I was amazed, because I didn't think he would listen, being brought up a Catholic.
Mm.
And so we listened, and they had those flannel.
Oh, the flannel boards.
You might remember the flannel board things.
It's before my time, Belle.
Before your time. So
I've heard about them.
Shows how old I I am. But yeah, so and then he invited them back, and then they invited us to church, and they said they would meet us at a place as we were going into Mount Gambier. And so we felt, do you know where we met? The RACV Hall.
The RACV Hall.
RACV Hall
Okay.
was where the church met in Mount Gambier. Wooden floors. My two little boys
Yeah.
had a ball running around the wooden floors.
Yeah.
I think, oh, God. But anyway, nobody complained about them.
Yeah.
And that was how we joined the church. Fred Berry, you wouldn't remember him either. Fred Berry was one. I can't remember all the names, but the Fosters.
Yeah. Yeah.
They used to work in the temple in Adelaide. I don't know if they're still there or not.
Yeah.
The Fosters.
What about Peter Blackwell? Was he there at the
Peter
time?
Blackwell was not there then.
Yeah.
He came later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's how we joined the church.
Okay, so let's just back up a little bit. I want to question you a little bit about this. So, when you were sitting down with the missionaries and they started teaching you, what you were hearing was quite different to what you understood as a Methodist and for
Yes.
John as a Catholic.
Yes.
So, do you remember much about being taught by the missionaries and how you felt at the time?
Well, we were asked to pray about it,
Yeah.
which is it's nothing new to us, or to me anyway. Although it was new. John wasn't a praying person at
Yeah.
that point in time.
Yeah.
But we were asked to pray about what we'd been listening to.
Yeah.
And after a few, I think it was about 3 or 4 of these little lesson things,
Yeah.
and praying. I said, well, shall we pray again? They doubt they'd made the missionaries had gone. And John just sat there and said, I think we should join them. I was absolutely, could have knocked me down with the proverbial feather, because I didn't really think it would get to him at all. But he did. It was his idea for us to join. And I agreed with him that it was, a lot of it was common sense,
Yeah.
really, in
Yeah.
many ways. And so that's how we joined the church.
Okay.
And Latins. Desmond Latin was one of the people that was there then. He's gone. I think he's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So that's when we joined the church, and we were baptised at Port McDowell. Port McDowell. McDonald.
Port McDonald.
Oh,
Yes.
Port McDonald.
Yes, that's down that area. Yeah.
They didn't have, and the waves were coming in so high. Rip curl would have been absolutely just so many. They didn't even bother to lean it back. You just said the prayer and woof, the wave came over you
Oh, so you're baptised in the surf.
in the ocean at
Yeah.
Port McDonald.
Wow.
It was interesting. It was a very. Really, it was, even though it was cold,
Yeah.
you were glowing.
Yeah.
It felt right.
Yeah.
It felt right, even though it was soaked through to the skin,
Yeah.
and I had lots and lots of blonde hair, which was,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it felt right.
Yeah.
It felt right, and it's always felt right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And John, well, you knew him. He was a funny man in many ways, but he never varied from the church. He'd talk to anybody about the church.
Yeah.
You asked my next door neighbour. Every Sunday when John was still around, and we were going out to get in the car to go to church, my neighbour would come out, and John would he'd say, "Are you going to church?" And John would say, "Yes, do you want to come?"
Yeah. Yeah, he was a good missionary.
He was a good missionary. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was a terrible missionary. But he was very good. He'd
Yeah.
talk to anybody, anywhere about the church.
Yeah.
So in that respect, he definitely should make Celestial Kingdom,
Yeah.
because he did talk to anybody and everybody about the church.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking here, Belle, for you both to have sort of grasped hold of these new concepts so quickly, was there something about your faith and John's faith, John being a Catholic, you being a Methodist, that you felt was perhaps lacking in some way? Because you took hold of the restored gospel, you joined the church, on a fairly quick decision. Did it answer questions that you perhaps didn't have answers for?
I think, I know it might sound silly, but I think Methodism, there are things in Methodism that gel completely with the church.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I really believe my grandfather had a Book of Mormon. I think my grandfather had a Book of Mormon. I really do think he had a Book of Mormon. Because there were things he said sometimes, because we discussed things when he was staying with us. He stayed with us some of the year and somebody else the rest of the year. We would discuss, he would discuss things,
Mm-hmm.
and there were things that felt, that gelled with they seemed to fit in with some of the things that I was being taught in the church.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think there was something in so I reckon he must have had a Book of Mormon.
Okay, maybe, yeah. And for John, did you ever discuss it with John? I mean, usually most Catholics, you talk to them about, a different religion. The first thing they'll say, I was born a Catholic and I'll die a Catholic. I'm not changing,
Yes. Yeah, no, John was never like that.
Why do you think he changed?
He believed it.
Yeah, okay.
He literally believed it. What he'd heard in the Catholic Church, it meant nothing to him anymore.
Yeah.
But when he heard the gospel explained to him, he just embraced it.
Yeah.
And he really did embrace the gospel.
I think what you both must have had, though, was a good foundation.
Well, I think the foundation of having the gospel in our lives at some point, the gospel has always been in my life.
Yeah.
From being very young. And so I know it's true. I don't have to even question it. I know it's true.
Mm-hmm.
My brother died during the war. He was only 3 years old. He didn't know very much. He was a very young child. And as he was dying, and this convinced me completely. As he was dying, he said, "It's all right, I'm coming." And the nurse that was with him said, "What's wrong, James?" And he said, "I'm going with the man at the top of the stairs, that man with the light. Do I need anything else? Do I need anything else?
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
there's a beyond here.
Yeah.
And I know it's true.
Yeah.
So what more do I need?"
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
That came from God, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. So you became members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Mount Gambier.
Yes.
But ever since I've known you, and I've known you since 1981, so a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
you've lived in Geelong,
Yes.
or in the Geelong area,
Yes.
certainly in the Geelong ward. So why did you move from Mount Gambier, Mount Burr area to Geelong?
John came for work.
Okay.
There was very little work down there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was just falling apart, really.
Yeah.
And so we had friends that had moved from Millicent into into Geelong, and we came to visit them. We came for a holiday, and we visited them.
Yeah. Who were those friends?
Birkenheads. They weren't church members,
Oh, okay.
but we came to visit with them, and John got a job out at Point Henry.
Okay.
So that was while we were on holiday. He got himself a job.
Short holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's when we met Peter Blackwell, because John came out. It was Christmas. We'd come for a holiday, and we would stay in a caravan park, the one at near the end of the river there. And then we came home, and John said, "Well, I'm coming straight back because I got a job."
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Blackwell said, "Well, I've got a place for you to stay." His mother lived in can't remember the name of the place, in Nor Lane. She lived in there, somewhere in Nor Lane there, and she was prepared to have John stay with her at her place until he got us all up here,
Okay.
up to Geelong. That's how we came to Geelong.
Fantastic.
It was through Peter Blackwell.
Okay. So moving from Mount Gambier branch or Mount...
It was a branch.
It was a branch back then, so a fairly small congregation
Very
of the
small
church.
congregation.
Coming to Geelong, how was that for you? Was that a good move, do you think, coming to where there's more church people
Yes,
and everything?
I think we were always put to work straight away.
Yeah.
As soon as we joined the church in Mount Gambier, the following Wednesday I was teaching Relief Society.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd only been a member of the church for a week and you were teaching Relief Society classes.
Yes.
Okay. And John was too, I'd imagine he was given some sort of responsibility fairly quickly.
He was doing something, I can't remember what, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we were always involved.
Yeah.
Always involved. It's just the way it was.
Yeah. Tell me about the sort of things you learned. You're a young lady at this time. You had a young family. The sort of things you learned, being a member of the church, and as you said, you started teaching Relief Society as soon as you joined the church. Practically, you probably had a variety of callings here in Geelong.
Oh, I have. Yes.
Yeah. What were the sort of things you learned that helped you as a young mum?
To teach my children what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah.
Which I knew anyway, but I think it was important that they knew right from wrong. And even though they're both gone, they never got in jail. They were never put in jail. They were good citizens.
Okay, so we might just add in here that both Chris, the oldest son, who was born in 1960, he passed away a couple of years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, and Adrian, who was a little bit younger, passed away also. So you have your daughter April left.
Yeah, she lives 2 streets up.
Okay, and she pops in pretty regularly to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, she's good.
Yeah.
And I've got my great granddaughter who lives here with me.
Yeah.
With her children.
Yeah.
Who keep me going.
They do. I'm glad that they're here with you. I'm glad that they're here with you. So back to the boys growing up. They were good guys. I didn't ever know Adrian, but I knew Chris fairly well. What did you feel the influence was from having the gospel in your home? How can I say this? How do you think home would have been without the gospel?
Terrible. It would have been awful. Because we went through a period, you may remember this, I don't know. For a period, when Chris was only about 16, he got mixed up with the wrong people. 15 or 16. Mixed up with the wrong people. And for a little while, I thought we'd lost him completely. And We tried to make sure we knew where he was and who he was with. It wasn't easy, but we had people that were watching him. And it was difficult because he got onto drugs. And there was a knock on my front door when we lived in Knoll Lane. There was a knock on my front door, and I don't even know who it was. A person said, "Do you love your son?" And I said, "Of course I do." I said, "Of course I love both my sons." And he said, "Well, if you love Chris," and he gave me the name of a street where I would find my son. And so I said, right. So I left my other son with my young daughter. I said, I'm just going to go and get Chris. So I drove down and I found him. It was like a bundle of rags in the middle of the street. That was my boy. How I got him in the car, I don't know. I don't know how I did it. But I got him in the car and I took him home. Adrian came out in April, and I said, look, go on inside. Adrian, you come and help me. And he'll help me get Chris inside. We cleaned him up, took the shower on him, took him all the clothes off, turned the shower on him, and he said, oh, you're going to kill me, you're going to kill me. It was really quite strange, quite amusing in a way when you look back, but at the time it was awful.
Yeah.
And we got him all cleaned up, and I never let him out of the house. I think it was about 6 weeks. Didn't let him out of the house. And all he lived on, and I got a big tin of, this sounds ridiculous, a great big tin of Milo. You remember the big tins of Milo?
Yeah.
And that's what he lived on, basically, was Milo. I didn't let him near anything that was not good for him. I tried to feed him other things like rice pudding and stuff. It took me 6 weeks, but I got him back.
Yeah.
And
so he was in a pretty bad way.
he was in a very bad way.
Yeah.
Very bad way.
Yeah.
And he would still keep coming back to church.
Yeah.
After that 6 weeks, because we talked. I'd sit up all night with him because he couldn't sleep. But during the day, he would fall asleep. So I'd sit up during the night with him, Milo and whatever I could feed him. And then he'd sleep during the day. So, oh, well, I've got to do what I can. So I slept when I could, when I knew he was all right. And that was how we got him back.
Right.
And
wow.
Sometimes he would come to church with us. But in all of that, and I kept, I would say prayers. I would pray with him. I'd say, we're going to pray. And through all of that, I think he still had a testimony of the gospel. I used to call, when I'd been to church, I'd call around and see him at where they lived. I'd call around and see him.
This is when you married Debbie?
Yes.
Yeah.
And have a chat with him.
Yeah.
And the last thing I ever heard my son say to me was, I love you too, Mum. You see, so, and that was on the Sunday afternoon, and we said goodbye, and on the Monday he'd gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we talked about the gospel right up to the end. And he walked me to the car, that little four.
The RAV4?
Yes,
Yeah.
RAV4. And I said to him, I love you, darling. And he said, I love you too, Mum. That was the last time and the last things he said to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the following day, he'd gone.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
I remember being at Chris's funeral, and I remember Adrian being there at Chris's funeral as well and speaking about his big brother, and how much he looked up to his big brother and everything. And it was only a few years later that Adrian passed away as well.
Yes.
Now, I've got to say that I think being a parent can be hard.
Very hard.
But I think one of the hardest things as a parent would be outliving your children.
Your children don't go before you.
Yeah, and you've outlived two of your children. I don't know how you want to talk about this, if you want to talk about it or not, but how do you feel about this? I mean,
I know where they are.
Yeah.
I know who they're with.
Yeah.
So I know everything's all right.
Yeah.
This might sound stupid. I don't think it does, because you're a Latter-day Saint. Of course you're thinking. They come here. Not so much now, because I know they're safe. I know who they're with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
The Lord's taking care of them.
Yeah.
And we lost another child when we were in England.
Oh, really?
A boy that we lost, James William.
Okay, I don't think I knew about
And
that.
he died as he was born.
Right.
And so they've got another boy. They've got, it's their other brother.
Their big brother.
Their big brother. So I've got three boys there.
Yeah. And they're all waiting for you, as well as John.
Yes, as well as John. But, you know, there are sad moments, but not many, because I know they're safe. I know that the Lord has them in his hands. And who needs to know any more than that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if I thought there was any other way that they would be, no. I knew they had a testimony of the gospel. They were amongst some of the last things I talked with my boys about. So I'm quite happy that they're safe with God.
Yeah. Good.
That's all I need to know.
Good. Belle, we've been talking for nearly an hour now, not quite. But I think I like to keep these interviews down to about an hour. So what I'd like to talk about now mainly is your testimony of the gospel, of the Saviour, Heavenly Father. Just share with us whatever you'd like to share about your faith and how strongly you feel about it.
I know the church is true. I know there is something beyond here. I'm not like some people say there's nothing after here. I know there's something beyond here. I know I've got people waiting there when I go for me to arrive. So I know the gospel's true. I don't go to church anymore because it's very inconvenient for me to go to church. Not...
Well, physically.
Physically.
Yeah.
There are things even physically that I would be embarrassed to be at church about. Apart from the fact I can't hear what's being said anyway. But one of these days my hearing aids will come. But I really do believe that the gospel is true. And I am so pleased to have it in my life. I don't know where I'd be without it. I'd still be a Methodist, I suppose. But it's my life. It keeps me going. I see and I hear things. My family, and they do come and visit me sometimes. Not as much as they used to do. Adrian used to come a lot.
You'd feel his presence here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen him walk past.
Really?
And it's quite, or I'll hear somebody doing something in the kitchen, and I know the guinea pigs make a lot of noise. But I'll hear something happening in the kitchen, and I'll say, "What are you doing?" And nobody answers, and I know what he's doing. He's looking to see what he can find. But he because of that oil black stuff. I think that's made a difference to him. And I said to him when John was going,
Yeah.
and I said to John, please tell Adrian it's all right for him to come with you. Yes, I sat with John for a while when we said, give him the drip.
Mm.
And I said, please tell Adrian he can come with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because he needs to come where he's safe.
Yeah.
And so I haven't seen as much of Adrian since then.
Yeah. Okay.
But I know it's true.
Okay. And what sort of message would you like to leave for your grandchildren who might watch this?
You can rely on the Lord, and I keep telling them this. You can rely on God for anything.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what it is. You can rely on God to help you in any situation. Just ask him, and he's there for you. But you've got to ask him. It's important to ask him. Don't expect him to do things. Ask him. To me, that's important.
Ask and ye shall receive.
Yes.
See, yes.
That's right, yes.
He did ask us to ask him. He likes to hear us. I mean, by asking the Lord for what we need, we're showing faith in him, and
to be kept safe.
Yeah.
To be caring people around you.
Yeah.
And to love and care about the people that you do love and care about.
Mm.
Because that's important.
Yeah.
The people that are close to you,
Yeah.
keep them close to you.
Yeah.
Whether it's in another country. You know, I've got family in other countries, but I keep them in here. So you've got to remember, but ask God. Don't tell him like what you want. Just ask him. You can't tell God what you want.
Mm.
You can ask him,
Yeah.
and it might work.
That's very true. Belle, thanks for telling us your story today.
It's all right. My pleasure.
It's been really good hearing. You know, I didn't know much about life in pre-World War II England. There's some new things for me that I learnt there, and life was hard back then.
It was. It was.
And you've seen a lot of change. You've seen a lot of change over the years.
A large amount of change.
In the way society is and how things are now. And we're lucky to live in Australia.
Oh, I love Australia.
You know.
This is the best in the entire universe, as far as I'm concerned. I can't see why people spend money on passports and medications and this and this and that. It's all here. It's all here in Australia. I've been around Australia. I've seen it. It's the most beautiful country in the world. You couldn't get a better country. You ask God to make you a better one.
That's right. Look, we are particularly lucky to live here, I think. I mean, we hear of all the turmoil around the world in Europe at the moment, particularly with the war in the Ukraine and Middle East is not a place I'd probably like to live at the moment. Africa, you know, there could be parts of Africa that are probably really good to live, but you know,
there isn't a better country than this one.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter who's running it, what prime minister they've got or whatever. It's the best country in the world. We do what we can to make it the best country in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah. I think, Belle, you know, I've been to a few other countries and they're good. I've been to the States a few times and been to Europe, the UK. There's nothing like coming home to Australia.
Oh, there is not. That's
nothing
for
like
sure.
It. Yeah. Anyway, look, I think I've probably kept you long enough, and I think everyone will really enjoy story, Belle. I think your children, April and well, April's your only one left here now, but all your grandchildren will love to hear your story, and it'll be here forever for them to see. So thanks again, Belle.
You're welcome.
We won't see you at church on Sunday. We wish we could see you at church on Sunday, but we understand that you can't make it anymore.
I give everybody my love, because I pray for every one of them.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do, and I'm sure it's helping a lot. So, thanks again, Belle, and
you're welcome.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
If you have an interesting story to tell, please contact us via our Instagram page or send an email to gatherin@proton.me.